All right, my friends, we are back. Episode at number 5 of the Deep End. So Ari and I off screen before we started recording, we always chat for a few minutes before we actually go live with this thing. But we started getting pretty deep in whatever conversation we were having, and I figured this would probably be good stuff to just record and put out there and make a part of our episode. So we paused the conversation off screen, hit the record button, and now we're getting back into it. Ari, would you want to just set the stage for kind of what we were talking about before we started recording?
Oh man, you gave me the daunting task of setting it all up. It was so deep. We were going so deep into the deep end.
Yeah.
I would love to. So we were essentially talking about, just reflecting back on earlier years, and I have right now. I'm just doing a lot of work with a lot of younger guys, and in terms of if people are experiencing like life troubles and problems and needing to focus. And, just thinking back to even my earlier years, my early 20s, like I was just out of focus. Of course, you're getting out of school, whether that's high school or college, and you're starting to work and make money and have fun. And you can really easily, I want to say, like fall off the balance beam of life. And so it's so important to refocus yourself, start to focus on things that matter, be intentional. And this is right where then Ryne was like, I can remember back when, and then he said, we can easily record this as well. And we were just like, let's just stop here,
Yeah.
hit record and pick up. So I hope I did a good job of setting the stage.
That was perfect. And truth be told, I needed you to set the stage because I kind of forgot where we
Yeah.
where we left it off. But no, that was perfect, man. I was gonna say I remember being around that age, out of high school, going into college, 17, 18, 19, early 20s even, and just having no clue what I wanted to do with my life. It's such a weird age too. I don't know if you felt this way, or a lot of you guys out there watching and remember feeling this way at that age, but it's such a weird time in your life where you feel like you should have a sense of direction of where you want to go. Maybe you're going to college for a certain thing, and that kind of gives you your sense of direction. But I know for me, like that's kind of the path that I went down. And I just remember being in that, knowing that it wasn't the right thing for me to do. And I think a lot of that direction came from external factors that weren't my own. And which is something that I think a lot of people feel as well, and have
Did you drop
thrust
out,
upon them.
Ryne?
Yeah, I did actually. Here's kind of my college journey. So after high school, I went to community college for 3 years in my hometown, which was a great move, by the way. Anyone coming out of high school, I'd recommend that. And then after that, I went for almost a full year to the University of Oregon. I really liked it there. Really cool campus. Had a lot of good friends there. Hated the school part. Right around when I was kind of finishing up community college, and community college, like there's no major or whatever. You're just kind of taking general ed classes. I was doing some science, doing a little accounting, which I did not like at the time. Could not understand it up from down at all. You get some of that general stuff out of the way. But then I remember going off to the University of Oregon, thinking that I wanted to do something in like health and fitness, because I was really into it at the time. I still am, as you guys have heard me talk about before. So my major at the time was physiology, and I hated the classes that I was taking. Miserable. And so I lasted about a year there before I decided to come home, and I ended up going to Sacramento State. My hometown was like 45 minutes from Sacramento, and I was living in Sac when I moved back. And so I went to Sac State for kinesiology, just kind of continuing on that path for another good year and a half, maybe 2 years. And at that point, 6 years, I hadn't even gotten my bachelor's yet. I was so deflated from the whole experience, because when I would transferring from community college to then Oregon, some of my credits didn't transfer. So I had to take some classes over again, like anatomy. I had to take chemistry, a whole year of chemistry all over again. Stuff like that. So that sucked. When I went back to Sac State, a lot of the credits that I had at Oregon didn't transfer over either. So it was almost like that was a complete waste of time. And so, but I was like, you know what? Like, I got to do this. Like, that's the thing. That's the path. You go to high school, you go to college, you get the job. That's kind of the conveyor belt of life, so to speak. And I just remember, a couple years into, in my second college or third, Sac State, 6 years into it, being like, this sucks. This sucks. I knew it was not for me, but you're conflicted because it's not for you. You want to be doing something different, but at the same time, like there are people who kind of expect you to be on this path, and that's, at least for me, that's what kept me on it so long. And it just, I don't know, for me it came to a head, and then I just decided, you know what, I'm not gonna go anymore. I'll figure something out. I figured worst case scenario, like my dream was to someday open up a gym, like have my own gym. So, and I had a whole path for that. I was like, you know what, I'll become a personal trainer, save up all my money, open a small training studio, then kind of just step by step scale it from there. But anyway, that was pretty much my entire college path. It just wasn't for me, and I remember that being a very tough conversation with my parents. And yeah, it was kind of contentious, I think, for a little bit because of that. But it all worked out, and I think in hindsight, they would agree with me now that not going to college, or not finishing college rather, was probably like the best decision that I could have made.
Look, man, I think that unless you're going for a very specific industry that requires a degree, and maybe it's medicine or law. First of all, I would say, one of my regrets is actually not going to community college first, because when you really think about it, like no matter where you go, freshman and sophomore year of university, at least in the United States, for anybody who's abroad that's watching, you're there taking these core classes again that again like span across. It's kind of like high school all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And community college, you can easily jump into community college and knock off a ton of tuition. And then you can go transfer into any school that you want. And guess what? You're going to graduate with a diploma from that school. And nobody, no matter, whom I've networked with, was like, where'd you go your first and second year? Like they're just like, oh, where'd you graduate from? So that's number one. I think a lot of people just, overlook. Well, I don't even think they overlook it. I think they're too nervous to veer on a different path because the quote unquote norm is all my friends are going to go to XYZ school. So I have to go to a school like that. And it's like competitive. But to get back on point, it's like, it doesn't matter. What matters is what you want to do. If you know what you want to do, and if you don't know what you want to do, you're actually in a pretty dangerous position, I think, because you have to stay clear from all the noise. You have to really like try to find yourself to the best that you can, to focus, and to, if it is community college, start exploring, start talking to people, start having conversations, with people in whatever industry you even think you want to go in. Ask for an internship, ask if you can, come and watch, their day-to-day for a couple of days. Is it something that still interests you if you're in their office space with them? But, for me, I graduated high school and I ended up going to Drexel University for 1 year until I
Nice.
saw the bill at the end of the year, which was $75,000.
Wow.
And yeah, I nearly had a heart attack. I did have to take on a lot of school loans, just based on my upbringing and whatnot. And so I took one look at that bill. I was like, I'm out of here. And I went back stateside to New Jersey to go to Rutgers. And I also wanted to graduate early, because I always saw school as something that would be useful if I used the degree in the right way. but also a giant waste of money because you're there for 4 years. So I was like, I don't need to be here for 4 years. And I remember going, when I transferred, Drexel was on a trimester system or whatever it is, and they have the co-op program and all this neat stuff that's so useless. And I transferred to Rutgers to a quarter system now, and I went in to go speak to like the whatever the equivalent is of like the guidance counselor, whatever. And I said, look, I want to graduate early. Can it be done? And she was like, well, your credits and this. I said, it's not the question I asked. I said, I want to graduate
never tell
early.
me the odds.
Yeah, I was like, this is what I want to do. Answer the question, right? Like, can it be done? That's what I asked. And she was like, well, it'd be very hard, And I said that again, like, this is what I asked. We mapped it out. It was pretty rigorous. I was always in classes and learning. I was also a full-time firefighter at that time in my life.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, so I helped pay for a lot of my student loans in school. And so no excuses, right? There's zero excuses for all this, I don't have money and this and that. But, I was also in a fraternity. I was trying to do it all, right? And the one thing, though, I treated school like a business. It was like, I am here to get a degree, to graduate early, and to get to the real world. So I get this paper, and I just look back at like that whole track, man. Like I said, I already shared my first regret is like should have gone to community college first. That was like number one. And then the second thing, man, is like, looking back, it's so hard for me to say that the degree did anything for me except allow me to write that on a resume. I networked. I never applied for a job through HR ever. I always networked. I always spoke to people. I always went to networking events. Still to this day, I've never applied HR. I think HR is the biggest waste of money for a lot of companies. And I've been fine, and I just think like even talking to some of the younger guys that I get the opportunity to sit with today, I'm like, look, if you don't know what you want to do, don't waste mommy and daddy's money, figure yourself out, even if that means going to school at 23, because at least if you go later, at least definitively what you want to do there, what you're going to use that degree there for. And, in the meantime, you could be making money. And I think now more than ever, in the age that we live in today, I mean, with TikTok and YouTube and this tube and that tube, it's like, look at us, Ryne. We're on here doing this whole thing, and like, you get affiliates, you get, ad rev, and not that you're like rolling in millions right away, but like, imagine going back in time. And by the way, I don't know if I told you about this friend. I have a friend who has, I think he's over 1 million subscribers now on YouTube.
Dang.
And he's making north of half a million from teaching people how to t-shirt print. Like it just blows my mind. And I'm like, if only people really understood like the age we're living in today. And if only people really started to understand themselves and what they really want to do, and like stop wasting time. That's what I'm really getting at. Is like, know what you want to do, execute on it, and even if you fail and like pivot in a different direction, that's totally okay. It's one step closer to what you want to do.
Yeah, that's great, man. I share a lot of those same sentiments. I think one of the issues, or I don't know if it's an issue, but one of the things about being that age is you don't really know what you want to do. I think a lot of people probably haven't given it much thought at that age. I think as you get older, for some people, that doesn't really change. I think it's something that a lot of people probably don't think about. They just kind of find themselves in a situation and stay there. I could be mistaken on that, and I'm certainly not speaking for everybody when I say that, but that's kind of been my experience so far in just talking to people and meeting people. Is a lot of them just kind of they slip into something, and It kind of just ends up being their life, and they don't question it. Um, but I
I
think
have an interesting question for you there, just before you go on.
okay.
What do you actually think growing up means? Like in your definition of like growing up.
I think it means checking off a lot of those boxes, getting the degree, getting the job. Um, I think it can mean different things to different people, but I think that's one interpretation is checking off the life box that you should, the picket fence and stuff like that, and that's great. Like I think I more or less check off some of those boxes or try to, and have grown up in some of those regards, but others I don't want to. I don't want to get a normal job. I didn't want to go to school just to go to school. I didn't want to get a job just to get a job. I wanted to do something fun that I enjoyed, but that's the thing that I was going to say. I just don't think a lot of people have thought about what that might look like for them. And I'm someone, and like I think we're both examples of this being true, is like you can, whatever it is you want to do, like you can, it's now easier than ever to create your own opportunities. And I shouldn't say easier than ever, it is now more possible than ever to create your own opportunities and forge your own path if you want to. It's hard work, but it's like you can do it. Going to a job that you don't like for 40 years is also hard work, so like, you kind of got to pick your hard. But yeah, I don't think a lot of people know what that looks like for them. And even in my case, man, like I kind of randomly stumbled into this stock stuff by happenstance, and stumbled into making videos about this stuff. Just, I didn't plan for it. I just kind of stumbled into it, and turned out like I really love it. The more I do it, the more that I like it. Investing and talking about investing is just kind of the gift that keeps on giving. But I think a lot of people at that age probably don't, as I keep saying, don't know what their thing is. And I think if that was given some more thought, then you might, I don't know, maybe some people might not feel as lost at that age, or just go down a direction that may not actually be for them. And you may not know what that looks like. It's hard to pick something at that age or any age and say, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. But think about the things that you're at least interested in, and think about what some of those things could potentially be. Like, what are you interested in? What could you wake up and do every day? There are probably things you're already doing. And whatever that looks like, there's some way to make something out of that. If nothing else, like you can start a YouTube channel. That's my answer to everything. Like when it comes to my brothers or my friends, I always have different YouTube channel ideas for them, because it's worked so well. It's been such a great thing for me. I want to just share that with everyone.
To be honest with you, I've shared that so many times with people because I'm like, I'll hear someone. I just had a buddy of mine who graduated from this coding course. And I was like, man, you could start a YouTube channel with like teaching people how to code. And he was like, yeah, it's cool, but like, I don't know if that's for me. I was like, I didn't think it was for me either. It's like you just naturally slip into that conversation though.
Yeah.
But I think what's interesting is like, someone like you and someone like me, because we just did it. And even, both you and I are just doing other things as well, like off of YouTube. And I just think, to go back to that question, like what is growing up? In my world, I feel like growing up is knowing yourself. The more you know yourself, the older you actually are. And it has nothing to do with, the age. You could be 57 years old and have no idea who you are. Trust me, I've encountered so many individuals who are just like no clue. Or like that's where we get that, right? The midlife crisis moment. Oh my, I have no idea who I am. I didn't do anything I want to do, like I'm all of a sudden, and it hits you. And I think, in the day and age that we're living in, it's like you do have to be careful because you can get so distracted these days. And I'm happy. It's like, I know you read a lot. I read a lot. It's like, even just reading helps you expand your mind and like focus on some things that if you have these curiosities and interests, you could start to read and really go down these paths before you yourself actually venture down them, get to know yourself a little bit more. And I think last video, I think we talked about this a little bit, where like people wanted more short form content. And I just had another comment on one of my Masters of the Market videos where someone was like, wow, I wish this wasn't an hour. It's so good. And I was like, you just hear yourself, like, you wish it wasn't an hour because it is so good. You know, it doesn't make sense. But I commented back. I was like, it's too bad we live in a world where like everybody just wants like 30 seconds in a tweet. You know, like we just have to, got to get back to focus and focusing on ourselves, growing up. If we're focusing on ourselves, we know who we are, and we can venture down these paths, man, and like fail really fast to learn who you are. I just think it's sad when you know, whether even if it's an investor, like if you're confused as an investor, like how do I invest? Well, try something, you know, like just try it. And if you fail, if you lose $100, who cares? Money's going to come and go. If you want to try Bitcoin because you think that's the thing, try a couple $100, see what happens. If you lose it, you might find yourself in dividend stocks. Invest in dividend stocks. If you find that it's a little too slow for you and you want more risk, jump to growth, right? Like just try. I feel like everybody's so afraid these days. Or I don't even know if it's like these days. I feel like I want to go with that. I want to take that back. I want to say maybe, this is bold, maybe society's getting weaker. Because I feel like at one point, like when I think back to my grandfather, like he just did. You know, like I feel like we're all like too scared now. What if I fail? You know, it's like just do. Like you probably will fail, but just do.
Yeah, it sounds like you've been watching Cobra Kai, like I have these last few days, because that's like one of the big themes. Is like, gosh, kids these days are so weak. They're such pansies.
I don't even know who that is. Who is it? A podcast?
Cobra Kai, great show. I just started watching it yesterday. 6 seasons of it on Netflix, and it's based off of, it's a present day continuation of the Karate Kid movies from the 80s.
Wow.
Did you ever watch those?
Oh yeah, man. Wax on,
so so it's what's the freaking guy's name?
Mr. Miyagi?
Johnny Lawrence, which was the bad guy in the original movies, and then Ralph Macchio, what's his character's name? Daniel LaRusso. He's also in it. So they basically open up 2 competing karate dojos, and it's just, like I said, it's just a continuation of it. But over on the Cobra Kai side of things, that's something there. Like, these kids are always coming in complaining about being thirsty or having to use the restroom or like working too hard or stuff like that. So they always make comments about how this generation's just like weak or whatever. So anyway, I shouldn't have even said that, because now I've lost like the train of thought. What did you ask me something?
We're so off the financial topic, but it's so deep.
You know, it's funny, dude. I was going to say a couple minutes ago, 21 minutes into it is when we first started talking about investing. So we're probably going to have some people not too happy with us in the comments on this one.
But I feel like, you know what? I just posted a Masters of the Market, and it wasn't on dividend investing. And I was like, should I post it? Should I not? To be honest with you, I was supposed to interview a different CEO. And that CEO got sick and she couldn't make it. And so this other, like, she connected me with this guy, this doctor, cardiologist, gone into real estate. And I was like, you know what? He's a successful guy. I'm going to interview him. And so I got a lot out of that interview. But I feel like it all does tie in to shaping your character as an investor. And I think that's important to realize. If there's one big takeaway, 22 minutes maybe now into this, it's like, everything that you're doing has the ability to shape you. And I think to be a well-rounded investor, you need to be very self-aware, very well-shaped, like worldly as well, well-learned, you know, like because you got to know what's going on, and you got to be able to sit in the volatility of, I feel like, you know, the storms of the market, because if you know how this world works, ebbs and flows, ups and downs, right? Like, you could just sit a little bit more calmly, and that's what it takes to be an investor.
Yeah, and you asked, here's what you were asking, I think, before we went on the Cobra Kai tangent. You asked about like people being scared. Are people just more scared these days, or what's going on? I don't know. I think I think when it comes to investing specifically, I think it's always been like this, partly by design, partly because it is partly true, but investing is made to be so complicated. People are very intimidated to start investing. And I think we touched on this last week in last week's conversation. A lot of people don't even know what a stock is. They don't understand that it's like a sliver of an actual living, breathing business. And I think that's one of the things that does make people scared about putting their money into stocks. I do understand like the fear of like real estate investing, because it's like kind of, even buying a house, it just requires a lot more money for the down payment. Then you're taking on what seems like a lot of debt. So I understand how that can be daunting. And I understand the stock thing too, because if you don't understand what a stock is, then it just seems so random and it seems so outside of your control. And it's hard to want to put money into something that, number one, you don't know what it is, and number two, because of number one, you don't have much faith in. So I think that's a big thing that keeps people from investing.
Oh, for sure. I think that, like, everybody always talks about this, but like, there's no education around it. Just to go back actually to schooling, like, I had one in high school personal finance class. I really liked it, and the class itself was like how to balance a budget, IRAs, and like it did touch into some of these subjects. It was one class. It lasted for like half the year. But not everybody has the luxury to even get a class like that, and I just think, imagine, and this is what a lot of people say, just imagine a world in which everybody was getting an education about how to handle money, how to look into the stock market. What's a stock? Like something so basic. But yeah, when you have fear, I mean, you're crippled. If you're fearful, I just remember so vividly right now in this moment, months back, when I just had opened up my ex's brokerage account for her, and she was like freaking it. Like for a year, I was like, when we were dating at this point, I was like, babe, you gotta open up this account, because I'm making money right now, and I would show her the screen. I was like, you could just be making money, like the S&P 500. And she was like, yeah, I want to. And I was like, so let's do it, And she's like, not yet. And it was like conversation after conversation, sit down, because I didn't want to, again, it's like you can't make people do things. You got to make them comfortable with what they're doing and like teach them how to do it. The interesting thing to me was like, I think there was so much fear around it. She didn't even want to learn what it was. The thing she was fixated on, which I understand many people are probably fixated on this, is that you could lose money, because you don't understand that you're supposed to keep the money in. She just texted me like the other day. She's like, can you check my account? And I'm like, trust me, the S&P has only gone up since you've opened that account. I put it on automatic, And so I'm like, just don't even look at it for 40 years, like you're going to be okay. But that's the thing, you hear stories and you see that people lost money, but who are those stories coming from and who lost money? The meme stocks, the day trader, like these people who aren't really investing. Because what is investing? It's decades. I just told a bunch of people the other day, don't think in days or weeks, think in years and decades. Then you'll get somewhere.
So by accident, this is a perfect segue into one of the questions that I wanted to bring up in this episode. Are you ready for it?
Let's go. Let's get
involved. This is seriously like the perfect lead into this. So this question, I received this on one of my videos, I think a week or a couple weeks ago now, but it's from my friend Kevin, who asks, if you were trying to convince family members and friends to start investing, where would you start? Okay, I'm trying to convince my little brother, who is 23, that if he started now at my age, which is 37 years old, he would be basically saying, I'm trying to convince my brother to start now at 23 so that when he's my age, 37, he would be well on his way to early retirement. So main question, considering everything we just said, fear, intimidation, lack of knowledge, how do you, especially like this is a very fitting question for this time of year too. New Year's resolutions, a lot of people wanting to make a positive change in their life. This could be that for a lot of people. So how do you convince people to start doing this? What do you do? This is something I think all of us want to know because we who are in it know the magic and the power of what could be when you start investing. So how do you get others on board?
I love this question, Kevin.
It's a good
Thank
one.
you so
Great
much.
question.
This is a deep end question. Like this is what I'm
Yes.
talking about.
Heck yeah.
Um, I would honestly, I know everybody wants to jump right into investing, and like I feel like we so often get so excited about how much we know about stocks and making money based on putting money into the stock. But I wouldn't start there. I think that's very intimidating. I would start by talking about values because I think when you start to talk about values, what do people really value in life? You can help them redirect, or perspective shift a little bit because at the end of the day, everything we're doing, like money is a means to an ends, right? Like we need to first understand where we want to go and like what we value. So let me give you an example. Um, I'm just using Starbucks. I'm not going to pick on you, Ryne.
So
But
before you get into it on the topic, I'm drinking Starbucks right now. I've got my Starbucks beans in my Starbucks mug. So
look at this frugality. I have these little cups. Never go out for coffee. But this is why I'm always drinking from these yellow cups, my to-go cups. I'll use this. I used it tonight. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to refill it, walk my dog, same cup, toss it out.
there you go. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Matt. I didn't mean to cut you off. My
Yeah,
bad.
all good, all good. We're in the deep end, man. Anything goes. So the reason I want to use Starbucks is because I think it's something that, and even I myself say the mocha choco lattes and whatever. I make that joke all the time. They're so good, by the way. The sugary drinks. When you go to Starbucks and you get one of those drinks, you don't even really like focus on the 8 or 10 or I don't know how much money they are today, but like let's just say $8, $9, right? You don't even focus on that. You're just so excited to go to Starbucks to treat yourself to a nice mocha choca frappe latte sugar syrup thing, and you get it and you take that sip and it's like, ooh, it's good, it's sweet, and then it tastes so good that that's all that's on your mind is like your next fix. It's like a drug, right? And we do it with anything. We do it with clothes. We do it literally with drugs. We do it with partying. We do it with all this stuff. The question to ask is, do we really value those things? Right? Do we really do we really love coffee? Do we really love clothes? Or do we really love, like, some people go buy all these expensive cars? If that's your thing, amazing. You found something that you really value and that you love. If coffee's your thing and you try different coffee beans and that's coffee's just your thing. You found something you value. I say spend money on it. But then find all the areas where you're not valuing those things and try to cut them down or cut them out so you can put more money to what matters. And that's like the first conversation I always have. The second question then becomes, okay, so now you're going to have this savings because now you're cutting things out that you don't really actually value or need, want, love. What are you going to do with that money? It's just going to sit in the bank. And then you start talking about you have this bunch of money that's sitting in the bank, and you go, you actually ask this question, do you know the current rate of inflation? How much is the bank paying you to have that money sit there? And have these individuals do their own math. to come to the own realization that they're actually losing money. And then you say there's a really simple solution, the stock market. And I don't want you to even throw money into a stock. I want you to go into the whole market and just put money, one share into the S&P. Let me tell you what the S&P is. It's a massive basket of 500 companies. And when one stock loses, 499 are doing well. So you really, in essence, can't necessarily lose. That's all you have to do is take that money that would just be sitting around collecting dust, matter of fact, depreciating, because we just did that math, just put it into the S&P. And I've had a lot of success with people getting excitement when they run their own numbers, they find their own values, and then they want to give it a shot. And then from there, it's like all bets are off. Wherever they're going to go from there, I think it's a step closer to that investor profile. But that's kind of my take on it. And it's something I've been, I sit down with people that's been working well. And it all, by the way, it always comes down to how you say it, right? Like not what you say, how you say it. Do you actually care about the person in front of you, or are you just so excited to talk about money? It's like that's a question. Like, do you genuinely care about this person's money, or you want to talk about money? So you're just like, oh, the stock market, da, 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 and you lose these people because they don't know yet.
Yeah, and if you go too deep
man.
in the weeds, then that's where the intimidation factor comes in, where they start to think, oh, this is way over my head. I'm staying far away from this. Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to just to sum up where you're at. So basically, you will show them, hey, inflation is X amount. You're actually losing money. Any money that you're saving, which is great if you're saving money, it's actually losing value. So what you should be doing is putting it over here into the S&P, which is XYZ, and then it'll just don't think about it. That's kind of your approach.
Yeah. I mean, look, on top of that, the first conversation is like, what do you
Yeah.
love? And people will be like, clothes. And I'm like, do you really love coffee, or do you really love clothes? Well, no, I love vacation. Okay, so why are you spending so much money over here, right? Because you could double up on the vacations. But then these people start to come around to, like, they actually do start to take a look at how they're spending their money, and they start to make some cost-cutting measures. And then it's like the second question is like, okay, so is that money just going to sit there? And like,
Yeah.
let these people answer those questions for themselves. It's so important, I think, to involve the other party.
Sure, because I think you can easily talk yourself out of, if someone's doing all the talking for you, then it's kind of hard to make that commitment for yourself. You kind of need to make it so they can't really talk themselves out of it, huh?
Well, it's also like no one wants to be, crown the Dumbo. Like I always want the person that I'm with to feel, even if they lack the financial education, I want them to feel educated. I want them to feel empowered. And if I answer those questions for them, and I'm
I
like,
see.
your money, you're losing money. Look at this. Let me do the math for you. Look how much money you lost. It's like you're a loser, like I'd rather have them say like, whoa, like I didn't even know that. Like I just ran the numbers. This is crazy. And I'm like, yeah, right. Now imagine if you put it into the S&P and the S&P gained 23%. What's that come out to? Like here's the calculator. And they're like, wow,
Yeah.
whoa, right?
I think the calculator is the big one. I can't say I've had too much success getting people to start investing. The couple that I have had, really I would say the couple that I've had success with have been my brothers. I was talking about my youngest brother who just turned 18 last week, I think. He's kind of starting to dabble in it a little bit. Not, we talked last week, he's kind of going in the meme coins. He still gets his Charles Schwab money for Christmas, so that's going somewhere responsible. And I said the same thing to him, just put it in like the S&P 500 and you're good. Don't even think about it. But he still dabbles in some of the meme coins and stuff. Whatever, that's fine. He's doing something. So him, and then my other younger brother who will be 28 next month. I remember a few years ago now. This could have honestly, but this was close to when I first started investing. So this could have been 3 or 4 years ago now at this point in time. Probably he wasn't too much older than Kevin's brother, who he mentioned in the question. I remember just I was really stoked about this stuff, really into it, and I just told him, like, look, I just showed him what I'm doing. I'm trying to lead here by example. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm buying. This is my thought process around it. It's very simple. Doesn't have to be complicated. You just buy this ETF. You can buy that ETF. This is what they are. You don't have to think about it. And let me show you. I know it's not fun. I know it's not interesting. I know there are things that you'd rather spend money on. But if you can just commit like $25 per week right now at 24 years old, $25 per week in just these two ETFs that you don't even have to think about. By the time you're like 45, this is what it's going to look like. I pull out that compound interest calculator, and it's like, look, I know it doesn't seem like much now, but this is the crazy thing. With time, it can grow into something really powerful. And I think he's been pretty good about investing a little bit, every month. I think he puts in maybe $100 a month into his Charles Schwab. And I think since that conversation, he's been really good about it. But that's kind of been the route that I've taken with this, is just number one, trying to lead by example, and just, talking about what I'm doing, making it seem as easy and straightforward as possible, because it can be so easy. And I've even offered, like, help my brother get set up. I'll help you, we'll set up the automatic transfers. You already have the account open. We'll set the automatic transfers, $100 a month, going to go right in here. All you need to do is just make the purchase on, the first trading day of the month. That's all you need to do. Spend 3 minutes doing it, and just repeat forever. And, so it's leading by example, explaining what I'm doing, even helping to get things set up so it can be out of sight, out of mind, and just letting them know it doesn't have to be anything crazy. You might think you don't have money, but you can do this with as little as $5 per week. So part of it is like making sure there's really no excuse not to start.
It's less than a Starbucks coffee.
It's less than a Starbucks coffee, but even so, that approach doesn't. That's the only time that it's really worked. My little brother, my youngest brother, who's 18, he's very observant. He watches what other people do, and he's able to learn from that. He's seen, I think I said last week, he just over these last few months has started getting into weightlifting. That comes from watching myself and my other brothers do that for the last decade. Like, he grew up around us doing that. And so it was a pretty easy thing for him to start doing. He knew what could happen if you just start doing it and don't stop. And he's kind of taken, I've seen him take a similar approach now as it comes to investing. He knows that it's something that he should do. He's got a little risky play side to it, but he's also doing some responsible things. And so I'm fortunate that he's observant in that way. And is starting as young as he is.
It's so crazy where, like, people can know that they need to do it, but they won't come around to it. Like, people will know that they need to get invested early. I was at this dinner party not too long ago, and there was this, I was sitting aside from this girl, and, she's like, yeah, I know I got to get invested into the market. She's like, I'm waiting until I have like a few $1,000s to get in. And I was like, you don't need to, wait for a few thousand, like, you could just start now. And she's like, yeah, I know, but like, I'm just going to wait until a few thousand, and then when I'm ready to, like, and I was like, I didn't get it. She's like, I know I need to. Yeah. And I'm like, and you even know that time is of the essence. She's like, yeah, 100%.
There's so many mental roadblocks that can prevent someone from starting doing this. It's like, I mean, people will find any excuse they can to not start doing it. It's kind of like exercising, really. Here we go again. I know.
Yeah.
It's kind of, the biggest excuse is, oh,
If you
I
paid
don't have
all of
time.
us just a penny for every
I
time you said
know.
kind of like exercising.
Well, it is. It's like people, the biggest excuse is I don't have time. I don't have
Yeah.
time to do it. It's like, come on, you can walk 20 minutes a day before you go to work, after you get home from work. There are things you can do for sure. And the same is true with investing. Oh, I want to wait till I have a few $1,000s. Well, it's like, okay, I get it. It's not exciting seeing like $5 in your brokerage account, but you got to start somewhere, and like that's better than nothing, and you build on that. But people are like, no, I want to save $5,000 so I have a chunk of change to start with. Well, you're not going to actually save that $5,000 or whatever it is. That money's going to be spent on other things in a short period of time, and you'll never save that amount to start. They'll say that. They'll say, yeah, I just don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to buy. It's like, okay, well, S&P 500, there you go. SPLG, $60 $60 a share, super easy. Um, yeah, but like you said earlier, well, yeah, but what if it goes down? Well, that's okay. Like things go up, they go down every single day. It's not for today, it's for 20 years down the road. So it's fine. And in fact, it's actually good, because then when you do buy more, it's less expensive, so you can pick up more shares, and in the long run, it's going to help you. So you can like deal with every objection there is, and yeah, people, they still won't do it. It's like pulling teeth. And I think, going back to this question, at the end of the day, you can't, I mean, you can lead a horse to water, right? But whether or not they drink is a whole different story. And people have to start when they're ready. A lot of people, especially early on, like early 20s, we were the same way. I'm sure all of us watching were the same way. You think you have all the time in the world, and so you can delay these things that will make a difference for your future. And that is true. Like if you started at 30, you'd be fine. If you started at 35, you'd still be fine. But the thing is, like, you'll be so much better off starting earlier. But still, you kick the can. A lot of people, this is not exclusive to investing. This is other things. This could be homework, could be exercising, could be all the things. People procrastinate. They'll kick the can down the road as long as they can, until there's no more road left to kick. And so when it comes to investing, that's why you see a lot of people starting, like, when they realize, shoot, I have no other option than to start. And then they scramble and think, gosh, I started too late. I should have started X years ago, or whatever. That's where you run into that situation. But the moral of the story is, we can say all these things. This is what you should do. This is what blah, 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 blah. But people are not going to do something unless they actually want to do it. And so I would think about that. How do you get someone to actually want to do this? How do you get someone to willingly start investing and make it think like it's their own idea? They're doing it because they want to, not because they know they have to. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe for a lot of people, it doesn't start that way. Maybe it starts out as one of those things where it's like, no, they do it begrudgingly because they know that they have to. And then, I don't know, kind of talking in circles at this point about it.
No, but as you're speaking, I'm just thinking about, like, it could be anything, like you said, in life, whether it is working out, whether it's doing homework, whether it's making YouTube videos, whatever it is. The reality is, like, the 1% club, the reason why they are the 1% club is because they're literally doing the things that the 99% just don't want to do, for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've spoken now to enough, whether it was on Masters of the Market, whether it's on, or just everyday life, enough CEOs and just masters of their craft. Like, they're doing everything no one else wants to do. And how many times do you go to, like, I love the people who listen to motivational videos all day, and they're like, yeah, and I'm like, dude, just stop listening to the videos and, like, go do the thing. Like, I used to be the biggest Tony Robbins, Eric Thomas, like, I was all about these guys. In my early 20s, I was the Barnes and Noble, living in the Barnes Noble aisle of self-help and motivation, and I was like, why don't I just stop reading all the books and like just do all the things? You know, like two books will give you everything you need, really, right? Like they all really say. I was just having this conversation with someone. They all really say the same thing. It's like get focused and do. No matter what it is, it's just like focus and do, and then fail, and you're gonna fail a lot, but then keep failing, and like eventually you're gonna be successful. And so many people are so afraid of failure, even to lose money. I don't really think that losing money is if it teaches you something. I don't really think that's a bad investment, right? Like even if it's like buying clothes, whatever it is, like you may spend money on something and then be like, oh, you know what? This is not a good quality sweatshirt. Or maybe that, a coffee every day wasn't that great, use of my money, or whatever. Maybe that investment in TSLY, because we were talking about that earlier, and I lost all my money, wasn't that great of an investment. Oh, but on top of that, you learn something new about yourself or about that product or about whatever it is. You just got your kind of reimbursement for that tuition. Don't make that same mistake again. Don't buy the thing again. Don't invest in that thing again, or know what you're doing. And I think it literally, things can be, investing is easy. That's the simple truth. It's easy. It's very easy today. The S&P 500, that's all you have to do is put money in the S&P 500. That's the easiest thing, and it's just, the reality is 99% of people won't do it.
They're too fixated on stuff.
Yeah. I think in a core root of it is just fear. Petrified of, I feel like, life itself. Like, I'm too scared to look like a failure. We were just, I'll just share this openly now. Ryne and I were also talking about before this, I want to venture down a new path, even on YouTube a little bit, where I'm still going to have my investing channel, but start something else as well. And I was just telling Ryne, it's like, I'm a little bit nervous because I'm going to invest a lot of money into it. And what if it flops? That sucks. But I was like, I'm going to spend about $10,000 on this thing. And if it flops, it flops. I'll have learned that it flopped, Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's like, you have to find out eventually.
And, like I told you off screen, there's a huge market for coloring books. And so I think this new idea that you've got, just live streaming your doodles, I think it could be a huge hit, man.
I'm going to be selling those coloring books on Amazon. No. Look.
No, but you have to take a chance. You have to take a chance.
Yeah,
and what's the worst that can happen? When it comes to investing, what's the worst that can happen? You kind of hedge your bets and you lose a little bit of money, not enough to take you out of the game, not enough that it's going to ruin your life, and you learned from that. If it comes to starting a YouTube channel or whatever it is you want to try, or if you have a certain idea for a direction you want to go in life, give it a shot and see what happens, and then you just kind of adjust accordingly as needed.
There's someone that's coming on Masters of the Market. He'll be joining me later this week for the episode to come this Monday. I swapped out a CEO for him because he, in my opinion, he's not a millionaire. He's not, he's like just inching his way to the six-figure club. And the reason why I'm having him come on is actually because he shared in the comments of one of my videos that he's made every mistake an investor can make. He's older in his years, and he wants to get the message out there that he's made every mistake that an investor can make, and he's still at it, and he's coming up on the $100,000. And that, to me, makes him the master of the market. Because what now I'm going to blank on the quote. But what is it? The master has tried more times. You know the quote I'm talking about, right?
I don't think I do, actually.
Oh no.
But I have a similar one that I also think hits the point.
Go for it.
Cobra Kai never dies.
Yeah, there we go. We'll just use that one because I'm blanking on mine.
The moral of the story is don't give up. All these events that take place, they're learning experiences one way or the other. And the only way that you really lose or die if you're Cobra Kai is by not getting back up and trying again. If you fall back down, you've got to pick yourself back up and keep moving forward.
There's not even another option, by the way. People think, right, like, just play this tape forward. Like, oh, I'm not going to, it's too much of a risk to do this X thing. I'm not going to do it. And you fall down, and you fall by default because you didn't do the thing. So you might as well do the thing and fall and then stand back up versus never doing the thing. I remember everybody can YouTube this. It's one of my favorite speeches by Jim Carrey. And Ryne, you may have even have seen it at one time or another. But Jim Carrey's giving a speech for a graduation, and he's talking about his dad. And I heard this speech like a decade ago, and it has just stayed with me this whole time because it's so motivating. Jim Carrey's talking about his dad, who was an accountant. And Jim Carrey said, my dad could have been a great comedian, but instead he decided to play it safe his entire life as an accountant because that was stable. But then my dad got let go, and he starts talking about the hardships of having been let go and never having tried the comedian route either way. So again, it's like you lose by default because you've played it so safe. So when I look at, man, I love this episode. This is a great episode.
It has nothing to do with investing, but this is a fun conversation. And so, I hope all of you guys watching are fine with this. This is the deep end. There's no rhyme or reason to this. We just hit record and see where it goes. But I think there's
a lot of these people out there have said they want to be a fly on the wall and know what we really always talk about.
Yeah, this is it.
This is literally.
And even though it may not directly be, we're not talking PE ratios or yield on cost or anything like that. There is application to investing here, so it is adjacent.
We're growing character.
Yeah. So anyway, what were you going to say?
So I just think about my life, though. When I made certain decisions, I had a nice, cushy job in real estate in Manhattan. I was well on my way to being a director of the firm. I lived in financial district off of Wall Street. I had the water view. I had 34th floor apartment. All the stuff in Manhattan. And what did I do? I took a chance on myself, and I left it all. I quit the job. I left Manhattan. Now, I needed to come. I didn't leave on bad terms. I needed to come back to Manhattan, and that's exactly what I did 6 months later. And not only did I get the job back, I got a promotion, right? And then I left again, and I gave the company an 8-month notice. And they were like, what do we have to do to keep you? And I was like, I remember telling this, the multifamily director, I go, Mitch, it's here. It's like a deal in the heart. Like, you can't, I'm going, I'm
like a peacock. You got to let me fly.
Yeah, you got to let me fly, man. You got to let me fly. And The Other Guys. I love that movie.
I'm so glad you know the reference.
Of course, man.
Gator.
It's one of the best movies.
Dude, super underrated movie.
I love when he's talking about his he's like, that's your wife?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, she's so ugly. He's like, what? But I left that company, and I was doing some work on YouTube, and that's how I got Tip Ranks. I became the head of marketing at Tip Ranks. Long story short, I left Tip Ranks, and I kept focusing on YouTube. And now look at me. I'm the vice president of an ETF firm. So I just look at people. I'm like, why are you busy existing, or are you busy living? Take some chances, take some risks. In the chances and risks, and I remember this way long ago from my Pop Warner football days. We used to have this Coach Mo, and he was a defensive coordinator, but he would just level in on us. And he was like, we were like 11, 10, 11. He's like, listen up. And he'd grab our helmets, and he'd be like, It's okay to be nervous. It's not okay to be scared. Got it, kid? And it's so right. Like you should be nervous. There's things that are going to be a little bit nerve-wracking, but if you're scared, you're going to fumble, you're going to drop the ball, you're not going to do so well. To be nervous is just like that's a part of life. And I say like be nervous. Like when I quit my job a bunch of times, like, yeah, I'm nervous. What's coming up next? I don't know, right? I'm going to figure this thing out and keep going, keep figuring me out. Everything always worked out. But if I was scared, and when you're scared from when you're nervous, like when you're scared, you're like trembling, you're paralyzed, you can't do anything. It's with the stock too. Like I was nervous to sell Johnson and Johnson, right? So I was like, all right, should I? I was weighing the odds, which I did. Now I'm happy I did it. And I'm happy I have United Health. And I'm seeing the nice returns from that already, and I'm like, but to be scared to make any sort of move, investment move, life move, you're just going to paralyze yourself.
Wow, man. Yeah, very well said. The moral of all of that is you can't let it stop you. I mean, yeah, you just can't let fear get in the way. It's only fear at the end of the day. Um, yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking about like my own version of that, and there's been times it still happens from time to time. Um, Doing my live streams, that I do every single week. It's such a small thing, but I still get butterflies doing it every week. And there are some weeks I went through a really this is the I've told you this off camera. I've told Russ this off camera. I'm spilling my guts now to the public, but there's been times where like consistent periods where I've been afraid to do live streams, thinking I'll screw up, I'll freeze, I won't know what I'm talking about or whatever. And I get terrified. I get just severe stage fright to the point where I'm like, I think I'm going to stop streaming altogether. But same thing. In those moments, I think to myself, number one, it's totally unfounded. Like this fear, it's nothing. There's no reason for it whatsoever. Okay, I know that. Like I feel these things, but in my head, I know it doesn't exist. I know it's all made up. It's based on a story that I'm telling myself that is not at all based in reality. Not only that, but I've done it like 100 times, week after week after week at this point. It's like riding a bike, or it should be. And so anyway, long story short, I get this just paralyzing fear to where I don't want to go live. But I tell myself that too. It's like, you can't let it stop you. It's such a silly thing. 100 years from now, you're not going to be here. No one's even going to remember you. So do the thing, even though you're scared. And it's nothing. You do it anyway, and you're better off for it. It's hard, but you're always better off for it. And that's how you overcome it, really, is by facing it, whatever it is.
So what's the one thing that's helped you overcome the fear, like to help you face it?
That, just forcing myself to do it. That's it. And then, but also simultaneously being like, just, it doesn't matter. The cool thing about the live streams is like, there's kind of like this. There's no script. There's no plan. I can say, I can say, I can, sneeze or whatever. And it's not a big deal. This is live. This is action. At the end of the day, I'm a human being, and it's all good. Like I said, 100 years from now, a week from now, I'm not even going to be thinking about this. Tomorrow, not even going to be thinking about this. Not even going to be a big deal.
An hour from now.
An hour from now, yeah. Yeah. And the crazy thing is too, like when it comes to that, and like I said, I still get it every week, right? Right as I go live, I have my like minute countdown now when I do go live, and that whole time I'm like, don't screw up, don't screw up, don't screw up. But 30 seconds into it, we're good to go. It's like we're having fun. It's my favorite thing in the world. And I truly, like, it really is. When it cut, like, all across all the content I make between YouTube videos and shorts and newsletters, the live streams are some of my favorite things to do. I look forward to it every single week. It's so much fun.
Yeah,
but
it's funny you talk
I can't not do it. I'm scared sometimes to do it, but I love it so much. I'm not going to let that stop me from doing it.
It's funny you talk about that countdown, because when I do Masters of the Market, it's just like this. Somebody's on the other side of the Riverside screen, and I always ask, I'm like, so Ryne, are you ready? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, great. Okay, hit record. I see the flashes of the numbers, And then I know when it gets to one, then boom, I got to be like, I do that whole, it's so scripted in my head because it's just like I say it every week. I don't even want to say it, but the only thing that comes out, I'm like, investors, right? Like, welcome back to another go round of Masters of the Market. This week, I'm so excited. But in my head the whole time, like, okay, his name is Ryne Williams. He's a CEO, he's a CIO. Like, do you remember his stuff? Or like, or he's got this channel, you got to mention this. And it's so funny how your mind could just like trick you into like thinking it's so much bigger of a deal than it is. It doesn't matter. Like the only thing that matters is that you're real. To me personally, like that's what matters.
I certainly think so. I certainly think so when it comes to this YouTube stuff, because at the end of the day, like that is the magic of this platform, is just a dude or two dudes with a camera just talking into it. It's sometimes it's not pretty, but it's at the end of the day, it's supposed to be authentic. It's not supposed to be, I don't think, at least something super, super like cinematically produced. It's just, that's not what this platform's for.
It's an experience. But I even think that's all of life, like investing as well. Like everything should be an authentic experience for you. Because like, I was talking with someone earlier today, and I was just telling him like there's people out there who aim for perfection and everything. The perfectionists, right? Aim for perfection, everything they do, and God forbid, they post something or whatever it is, and it's imperfect. They're distraught. Life is over. Whatever. Then there's the person who's willing and able and capable of looking like a fool. I would pick that person any day.
I'm pretty good at that.
Like, like who can't? Like, I don't know, man. You need to fail. You need to look like a clown. Like it's just gonna be a part of the journey.
You need to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, because that's where growth comes from.
Let's talk right here with investing. The people who are like, oh, I've never lost. The people on YouTube who are too afraid to even talk about. I just saw a video of yours, Ryne. You posted, I think, I forgot the percentage, how much you lost percentage-wise in your most recent video just the other day. And it's a big red thumbnail. It's like, boom, I lost. And what got me with that was like, that's real, that's real. You lose money here, but if you win more than you lose, then you ultimately win. And I think that's what people have to understand. If you're aiming for batting 100 out of 100, like good luck, then you're going to walk on eggshells your whole life, and you're probably not going to take the risks that you need to that could 10x your growth because you're too afraid.
Yeah, and this is one of those games to where the longer you play it, the more likely you are to win. You'll have some mishaps along the way, but the longer you play this investing game, the better off you're going to be. And what's funny? In that video, I got a couple comments, and we get these from time to time. We'll even get them in the comments of these videos where we'll say something and people are like, that's why I don't buy individual stocks. That's why I just stick to ETFs, so I don't have to worry about making these mistakes, or I don't have to worry about XYZ or picking the wrong stocks or whatever. And on one hand, I think that's good. I think that's really good that you know that about yourself. That's an important thing to know about yourself. And then on the other hand, I think, see, that's like why I'm okay with these losses or these learning experiences, because it's all part of the process. And excuse me, Ron Unfiltered, guys. I enjoy doing this so much, and that comes with the territory, the losses and the mistakes, and people say I don't want to have to think about that stuff, but I enjoy it, for better or for worse. No matter the outcome of some of these, it's been a really fun experience, and you get so much out of, I think, investing in individual companies, and it's not worth it for everyone, for sure. And some people don't want to put themselves in the position where they can risk picking the wrong stocks. And like I said, it's important to know that about yourself. But I think that thinking about these things, making a decision, seeing if, the outcome's favorable based on, what you thought, that's fun. That's an enjoyable part of the process for me. And I don't know. I guess I'm just different from some others in that way. But either way, I think it's an important thing to know about yourself.
Well, look, going back to something that you said, it's like in 100 years, no one's going to remember you. And what I always think about that helps me overcome any sort of fear or just take the leap of faith is the fact that when I think about my funeral, I don't want a bunch of people showing up saying, wow, that Ari Gutman guy played it so safe his whole life. You know, this guy stayed at the same job for like 50 years. Not only did he stay at the same job for 50 years, but like barely took any chances because he was so safe. That's how we should live life. Like that would be the worst funeral ever, you know, in my opinion. When I spoke at my grandfather's funeral, you know, my grandfather was my huge hero, still is. And I remember just how many people came, like how much he was involved in. By the way, he had a financial website, which is pretty cool. But he was involved in the Simsbury, Connecticut Camera Club. He had a financial website. He had 9 patents. He was connected here. He was connected there. He's doing all this stuff. And I like, to me, it's just impressive. It was like, I want a funeral like my grandfather had, where like everybody was like, how did this guy like just risk and did this and he knew that and he was reading always. And, you know, I remember being a little kid at my grandfather's house and he came in. There were 13 of us grandchildren, and he came in and he sat down for half a second because we were all watching TV. And he sits down and he goes, you kids, you're just losing brain cells. And he stood up and walked out. And he's like, for anybody that wants to hear a story, you know, come with me. And like, I went with him, you know, he told an epic story. And like, I took so much from him. One of the biggest things was like, always remain curious, always learn, continue to do, you know. And I just like, it's a shame that people, I feel like, aren't doing the do anymore, you know, like we've stopped. And that's, I feel like, to come full circle, you know, I want the funeral where people show up and they're like, wow, you know, this guy has failed so many times, but he never gave up. And he lived like a pretty hell of a life. You know, like, I don't know, maybe I'll never reach millionaire status. Maybe I won't. But I lived like a billionaire every day because I'm not trapped at a 9 to 5. I'm taking risks. I'm having fun. You know, like, for all intents and purposes, I am a billionaire. What do you got to say about that? You know?
Why don't you said a minute ago people don't do the do anymore? Why is that? What changed?
I feel like society as a whole,
is it easier to be complacent now? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I feel like it's easier to be complacent. I don't feel like there's any real pressure either to do things anymore. Like, I remember my dad was hard on me and my siblings to get out of the house. You know, like, he was more old school. Like, get out of the house. When you graduate school, you're not coming back here. You know, like, I moved out at 19. I was a full-time firefighter by that point. And I was proud of myself. I mean, I made a man of myself. You know, I lived in my own studio apartment in New Brunswick, New Jersey, paid my own bills. You know, like, it felt good. And I never looked down on anybody who went back to live at home, but I personally didn't understand it because I was like, sometimes I looked at one of my really good friends way back in the day, like, he was living at home until like 25. And I was like, already, you know, by that point, I was a firefighter already. I was working in tech sales and ad sales. I was living in Manhattan. Like, I was making life happen and having so much fun doing it. And then I would kind of look at him and he's like, yeah, man, I can't do a lot because I got, like, my mom doesn't want me coming home late. I'm like, dude, you're 24, you know, like, what What are you doing, man?
So, would you say this ties back to the question you asked me earlier about growing up? That's part of it, don't you think? Like, and I was thinking about this as you were talking. Growing up, part of it too is being self-sufficient. So if you're self-sufficient, you're paying your bills, you're doing your thing, you're able to keep your own roof over your head. That's pretty grown up, right? Wouldn't you say? It's I would say after thinking about it some more, it's probably more growing up is probably more that than it is checking off the boxes like I was talking about earlier.
I would
Would you
agree.
agree? Yeah.
I would add one thing here too, and this might cut different for some people out there. When you It's taking full responsibility and accountability for everything, because even if you are, making your own money and being self-sufficient, I I can't stand the people who are quote unquote self-sufficient but then they complain still about their life. Oh, you're like a child. If you don't like your life, then change it. Like that's the difference I think too between like a real adult and a kid. Like, don't you just those people who are at a job and they complain? It's like you can change it. You don't have to be there.
I have a I know a handful of people who are incessant complainers about anything and everything. Could be the way they're feeling, it could be headache, it could be oh my stomach hurts today, I'm tired. I didn't sleep enough, I slept too much, so I'm tired. You just name it. And it's the hardest thing to be around to me. It's
What do you
that's
do
one of
with
my
them? Do you keep them around?
um yeah,
You're nicer than I am, man.
well, sometimes there's people you can't cut out. You're stuck with them. Um, but these people at the end of the day they mean well. I go by more of that. I'd say, do they mean well? Is their intent good when it comes to me? That's something I'm that's more important to me. I think. Um, but still, it is tough to bear sometimes, and it takes a lot of. I think it takes patience to constantly intake that stuff, but you have to shrug it off, you have to let it go in one ear and out the other, and also sympathize, because someone who's a constant complainer or whatever, it just comes from a place of not being happy, not being content in their own life. And that's kind of and maybe I'm oversimplifying it, I don't know, but this is when I think about it, this is the conclusion I come to. It's not about the headache, it's not about the stomach, it's there's something deeper rooted in there. And I feel for that, because that's hard. I think I like going through, that I've been through periods in my life where I just was so not happy with what I was doing. I was like
Mhm.
that a lot before I started investing and making YouTube videos about investing. As silly as it sounds, it's like this. I just can't tell you guys how life changing it's been, like being able to do this, and that's why I'm such a huge proponent of it. Um, and recommend anyone do something like this, because it can be super life changing. But I was unhappy before this, and probably was a constant complainer, not in a good mood. Probably, periods of time where I wasn't that fun to be around. And to your point, though, you can change that. You can change that. You can get yourself out of those situations. It's not easy. It doesn't happen overnight, but you establish good habits and you initiate daily disciplines that can get you taking steps in the right direction, and eventually you'll be so far from that person that you were in the situation that you were in, um, that one day things just turn around for you, and you find that you don't actually have a whole lot to complain about after all.
Man, there's that what I love this parable where this man dies and he gets up there to heaven and God's looking at him and he's looking at God and God goes, well, and he takes out this sheet and he starts reading off this man's life and he goes, wow, you were, a jack of all trades, graduated top of your class, you became this, you became that, athletic. And he starts this amazing description. And the guy's like looking back at God. He's like, I don't I don't know if that's the right sheet. And God goes, "Oh no, that's who you could have been,
Uh,
but you decided not to do any of that." And I always think about that, man. I'm like, we could be whatever it's so cliche, but it's so true. We could be whatever we want. Like whatever we want as long as we do. And I think what you just mentioned is so important. It's like if don't complain. If you find yourself I can't do complainers. You are way nicer than I am. I have like a 3-strike rule where like if you're kvetching about something and that's cool, right? You can complain about it for a little bit, but like the second time, and then if you come back around to the third time, it's like 3-4 months later and you're still just in this like, oh, I'm like, man, go take a shower. Like I can't hear it anymore. I'm more of like the Alex Hermosi approach. I just won't put up with it. And I'll hit you really directly with like, dude, you know what? I love you, but like, you're just not doing anything. You just keep complaining. And one of us has to just grow up here and like get with the program, like, and I'm going to tell you that you need to do that because it's just, I just can't do it, man. I think again, it's probably stems from my childhood. Not that I have a lack of patience for it. I just don't respect it. Like I personally had to grow up very quickly. And I'm so happy that was my story. I'm happy I came from a broken home. I'm happy I had to pay for things at 10, 11, 12 years old. I'm happy. And I don't regret the past nor wish to shut the door on all of it because who I am today, like that no nonsense, like, I remember in Manhattan, I broke up with, this was, an ex of mine. And I just remember though, she was like, I was helping her move into her next apartment. I'm always very nice to exes, by the way. I'm like, this is a very nice thing to do. Like we broke up and I'm like helping her move into her next apartment, like, bye, you know? But she's like, yeah, I'm just going to call my mom. She's going to buy me like a new mattress. And I was like, call your mom. You're like 26. Like, what do you mean? Like, you have a job? You're working? Like, what are you calling your mom for? It just rubs me the wrong way, dude. I don't like it. I'm like, you're an adult. I get it. Like, again, it's my childhood. I'm very intense. But at the end of the day, don't complain. Like just show up as an adult in this world. And I think there's so few adults. That's my honest truth. I think there's so few adults in this world. I think there's a lot of big kids walking around.
what do those look like?
The complainers, the people who like, again, like think about the people who complain about their jobs every day and then they go out to like happy hour and then the next week rolls in, the next week rolls out and they're still complaining. 1 year goes by, right? Like, and it's like, what, you keep complaining, but you're not doing anything. Or your financial situation, you're like, oh, I wish I had more money. Or I need more money, but like, yeah, I don't know what to do. I'm like, I don't become a pizza delivery boy at night. I don't know. Whatever you need to do, just stop complaining. There's no time for it. You get 3 strikes with me, That's it. Don't let me catch you kvetching after 3 strikes.
Yeah, I can say, like I said, sometimes some people you're just stuck with, And I'm on the receiving end of some of that stuff, it pushes me in the other direction. Like I want to go more out of my way to not complain. Like it makes me, if I'm running that day, it makes me want to run an extra mile. It's like if you're upset about the weather, like I'm gonna go run in the rain just to show you it's like not that big of a deal. Oh, you're upset about this? I'm gonna go over in this other direction and work even harder. I don't know. I kind of have a weird way to deal with it, I guess.
No, but you know what? It's like even when me and you like off camera, totally off camera, WhatsApping, and we'll say something. You could have a day, or I could have a day, and we could say something. I think it's not terrible to complain. You might just need that accountability partner to just be like, yeah, but like this, and you're like, oh yeah, but this, right? Like, I'm fine with that. That's like
Yeah, yeah.
that's like you're having a moment. It's for the perpetual complainer though, right? Like that, I feel like you got to nip that in the butt. Like, just shoot someone straight and be like, I get it, man, but like for 3 weeks now, you've been just, you know, like I'll be open about it, man. Like, I don't know how 2 months ago or whenever it was now. I think just before we had popped on to one of these chats, I was telling you about my ex and like, but now look at me. I'm like, yeah, like we're gonna move on. Like, right? Like I broke up with her and we're moving on. Things are happening. I'm making choices and decisions. But for like that 5-10 minutes we were speaking about it, again, accountability partners, like, yeah, you're like shifting some focus. People have to get their thing out in the open. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not cool when like you're just stuck in it.
Well, there's real
You're
things.
stuck in
There's
a financial
real things.
situation.
There's real things that happen, and then there's trivial things that happen. When you're constantly, going on and on about these trivial things that don't even matter and really don't impact you, it kind of wears you down. But yeah,
I mean,
to your point, like real life stuff happens, and it's good to have a support system and a sounding board for those things. But
think about how many people, I mean, just like, oh, I don't have any money. I'm like, oh, okay, so go make it. Like, oh, I don't have enough, so go make more. Like.
See, my thing is like, when I hear that, it's like, okay, my first question is, what are you spending it on? What are your expenses look like? Because I guarantee you cut out some of the BS and you have a lot more money than you think. I've never been someone who's a super high earner,
What's the highest you've ever made?
I don't know the exact number yet, but the most amount that I've made was actually in 2024. It was my best year of income ever, and it was still moderate.
A YouTube year, yeah?
Yeah. It was still, a moderate income. It's nothing crazy. But like jobs, prior to starting this, like just from jobs, like the most I ever made in a month was like 4K. That was like in my, mid 20s. So never been a high earner, but I've never had an issue where I don't have money left over at the end of the month. Like I've never been concerned for even on like lower incomes than that. When I started doing YouTube full time, it was like half that. I was still able to pay my bills and still had money left over to invest. And it's like, you don't need as much money. You really don't need as much money as you think you do. If you just audit where your expenses are, you can find so many ways to save. And it's good for you too, because it can help you prioritize and focus on the things that really matter, which is not stuff. So I think it's good practice.
Living below your means. I mean, that's to me what it sounds like. You could be whatever, I think it's The Millionaire Next Door, if I'm not mistaken, but that book talks about teachers who are notoriously known to make like some of the lowest salaries. And I think it's The Millionaire Next Door that talks about how teachers are actually in a class of, individuals who are some of the wealthiest in America because you're saving your money and investing your money the right way, living below your means. Like even you yourself right now, even just sharing, it's like, you're like, yeah, I've never actually made a crazy staggering amount of money. I've just made a modest amount and like live below my means and like you're free. That's another thing I don't think people factor in is like you are free. There's no one you report to.
And that's
huge.
That's another cool thing about investing is I think it gives you this safety net to where if something went wrong, you still have that to fall back on. Like if this all went away tomorrow and I had $0 coming in for income, I still have almost 90K set aside that I can pull from if I needed to. In my mind, that money is like gone forever. I'm not touching it. But if I needed it, it's there. Also, at this point, we're bringing in a few $100 a month, a couple $100 a month, 250 on average from dividends. So it's like, that's not nothing. And that's the great thing. The longer you do it, the better it gets. And the more that you're building over here, the more secure you feel, I guess, in your financial state, which can impact all the other areas of your life. It's one of the biggest stressors out there for so many people, that if you can just start building something there, you'll feel that so much less, and it will trickle into other areas of your life. And like I was saying, you might find that you have less things to complain about if you get this one thing right over here. The same applies when
Sure.
it comes to your health and fitness, but that's a whole nother conversation. uh, but yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Life is simple.
it
It
can
really
it
is.
can be
It's
it can
simple.
be simple. It can be simple, for sure.
Yeah. No, it's perspective too. It's like, again, part of growing up. It's like the more you start to realize, open your eyes. Like the more you grow up, you start to realize more, taking a look around, like what's important to you. And the simple things really do, like working out, right? Playing, the dog behind me, like when we go to the park in the morning together, again, like you could choose to be like, oh, like I gotta wake up at 5:30, 6 o'clock. I gotta go to run with the dog. Or you can wake up like, I get to wake up this morning, go run with the dog. Like, oh, I have to go to work. Or I get to go to work. It's just like the perspective. It's like, and I think that's the other thing. It's like when you're, and I don't want to, there's a huge thing, especially in like the motivational world or whatever. It's like, make gratitude lists. I don't really think you should be waking up every day making gratitude lists.
Yeah, you shouldn't have
But
to force yourself into that stuff.
yeah, no, I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that's dangerous because you're like, I'm grateful for, I'm grateful for. It's
I'm
like you're
grateful for
not
the
grateful
wall.
for it.
I'm grateful
Yeah.
for the foam panels catching the sound, and
Yeah.
my grateful for my camera lights.
It becomes this like list of hogwash. If you're really grateful for it, you're clear on it. You wake up and it's just like, yeah, like I chose this. Like I'm choosing. That's the deal. It's like then you stop complaining when you realize you choose everything in life. If you don't like your boss that you're always complaining about, then maybe it's time that you get a new job and start looking now. Like
Hmm.
even just looking for a new job may even help you realize your boss is not that bad. Like, or maybe you do find someone else to go work for and you realize, yeah, I needed to get out of that toxic environment. But if you're going to stay there, or same thing with your, cleaning up the brokerage account. Like for me, this past year, I mean, I've taken that account that I had from 2020, from 40 positions to 20, from 20 down to 10. That's where I'm at now. And 2 ETFs in there and 8 individual stocks. And I'm looking at it now and I'm like, damn, I did some work on that.
I
I did
didn't
some real
realize you
work.
had 40 holdings. That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's
man.
that's surprising
2020
to
was a
hear.
wild, wild, Andre Jick, let me load up,
Yeah.
buy everything, 3 shares here, 2 shares there, 1 share here. Like it was atrocious. But yeah, it was upwards of like 40 holdings and trimmed that down and got to 20 and then trimmed that down now to 10. And I'm happy with it. I think I actually may do some more trimming. But where I'm getting at with that, it's just like instead of me coming on, and I hope that I was a great example for people because even just in our handful of episodes, Ryne, how many times did I say by the end of the year, I'm going to sell this position, this one, and I want to sell it, right? And then the end of the year came around, boom, 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 sold them all, and like I feel good about all of it. I made changes. I don't have to look at that portfolio the way that it was anymore. I executed. Better or worse, which I think is better for me right now, and it shows, it reflects in the brokerage account. Like action, 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 action.
Well, it sounds to me, man, like, and this is the natural course for every investor. You've come into your own as an investor. You've pretty much established your profile, and you know what that looks like for you. So now you're taking actions that are more in alignment with that. And yeah, it takes
I mean,
some
man,
time to figure out, but
to hit the goal, I mean, the $300,000 in that brokerage account, I'm gonna like that's gonna require some action. I can't sit around and I'm just pulling it up now, 238,000 in there. I mean, I got quite a ways to go. So I'm gonna need to play carefully, as carefully as I can. But I have a pretty audacious goal, and if I sit around and do nothing, I'm not gonna hit that goal, not in the time frame that I want to hit it. So you got to be realistic with yourself too. I think with when it comes to your goals, like know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Take the necessary actions to get there. I can easily come on here week to week with you and be like, yeah, that goal, like I'll hit it eventually. No, I want to come onto this, into the deep end at the end of the year and be like, I smashed it.
I feel like I'm kind of more lackadaisical about it. Like when we first were coming into this year, we were talking about our investing goals for 2025. One of mine was initially to hit $100,000 in the portfolio, but you pushed me to push that a bit higher to set a goal of 125K by the end of the year. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's see what we can do. It's not too far out of reach that it's not out of the realm of possibility. There are some things outside of my control that would, you know, either help or hurt me in reaching that goal, but let's give it a shot. See, I'm like, if it happens, it happens, and that's great. Like, I'm glad that I set this high goal and accomplished it, but at the same time, by the end of the year, if it doesn't happen, I'm like, you know what? It's okay. I know I'll get there eventually. There's always going to be 2026, and I still made some killer progress this year, possibly more progress than I would have if I would have set the lower goal. So I think it's good to shoot for the stars, but like I said, when it comes to actually hitting it, especially when it comes to investing, which I plan to do for the rest of my life, I'm a little bit more lackadaisical about it, I think.
It's funny, like, we have such different approaches. I love it. We have such different approaches to, like, I'm like, get involved, let's go, right? Like, and you're like, I'm going to take a breather, if I hit it this year, great. If I hit it next year, great. It's for me, I want to be the person, at least on YouTube here in this investing space, that people may not always agree with me, but they can count on me to follow through with what I said. And I may fail exactly with what I've been, preaching. I may fail, but if I fail, I want to fail going out knowing that I tried my best. I told everybody, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm gunning for. I hope everybody's in support of me doing what I'm doing, you know?
Yeah, how could you not?
But I want to be like, I want to show investors or people in general. It's like, you can have these audacious goals. You can run for them. Don't be afraid of it all. And I don't know, man. I just think life is very, very short. Like, realistically, like, we don't have 100 years to live. Most of us, maybe in the future we're gonna have like 140 years to live at the rate we're going. But I feel like,
Isn't that crazy to
the
think
real
about?
midlife crisis is not, it's like 30. It could be like 25, because, like, the reality is we don't know how long we're actually gonna live. Anything can happen.
Well, that was me, man. Like, I think I had mine when I was like 25, I was very unhappy with my job, which trickled into other areas of my life. It just was a huge weight on me. And I had to, after sitting with that unhappiness for a long time, finally it comes to a head, and you have no other option but to face it. And at that point, like, I remember thinking, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing with my life? I'm 25. I can't, like, for myself and the people around me, I cannot stay on this path because it's not going to lead to a happy life. Like, I need to figure out what the heck I want to do, what the heck direction I'm going to go down, and just try some things out. I've got nothing to lose at this point. And So I think I fortunately got that out of the way relatively early. But it kind of just goes back to what I was saying. You have to think about, at some point you'll have to cross that bridge. You'll have to think about that existential thing. Who am I? What am I here for? What do I want to do? Who do I want to be? Um,
You know,
and it's
I
better to
often
face
say
that
this.
sooner than later.
People always think about what they want to gain, which is fine. You could think about all the things you're going to gain or want to gain. I think about, what am I willing to lose? I always think about it. And when it comes to my dreams or my happiness, I'm willing to lose everything. The cushy job and office and apartment, like, I'm willing to lose it. I'm not willing to sacrifice my peace of mind and happiness for what? You know, like, just as much as you kind of had that midlife crisis, if you will, younger, likewise with me. And like, those were some of the things that I was like, I could stay here in Manhattan, working real. I could stay at tip ranks. You know, I could do these things, but then I'm not living. And I can't then. You know, it's like that same realization that you had. It's like, you could have stayed on that track, but you didn't. You know, like, that's what makes Ryne Williams Ryne freaking Williams. You know, it's like it just makes such an epic story. And now you look back on it and it's like, we're gonna look back on this very video in a couple of weeks, because I think you're at, like, I didn't check recently, maybe 72, 73,000 subscribers. Man's coming up on 100,000 subscribers. That's a big deal.
It's crazy, man. This YouTube stuff has been one of the greatest surprises of my life. So fortunate to just feel very fortunate. And with that, thank you everyone for not only the support on the main channel, but also here on the Deep End channel. I mean, we're 5 episodes deep. Our last episode, number 4, was our most viewed one yet. And we keep getting so many great comments, so much good feedback from you guys tuning in, and I just want to say thank you guys so much for all the support in this. It's awesome. And these conversations, I know we're blabbering about a lot of stuff that really doesn't apply to investing, but these are fun conversations and important conversations, I think, for Ari and I to have. We were going to have them anyway. You know, all this is, we're going to have these conversations anyway. We're just putting it out there. And so I hope it's at least somewhat entertaining now.
To say
An
that
hour
the
and
reality
43
is,
minutes into it.
over for 2 years now, or however long it's been, we've been sending like 5-minute voice notes to each other.
Yeah.
and like, it just be like this crazy long drawn out conversation. And now from the week to week, we get to jump on here and have those very same conversations out in the open with everybody,
Yeah.
and have you all chime in the comments. It's amazing.
It's just, what a crazy world that we live in. You know, whatever you want to do, guys, the world is your oyster. There is a way to forge your own path and do your thing. You just have to start and never stop.
Amen. Should we wrap it up?
I think that's a pretty good place to wrap it up.
So I'll wrap this up just by saying we talked a lot about a whole lot of everything and nothing today. So I want to know if you guys enjoyed, if you even made it to this point in the podcast and into the deep end here. We went pretty deep. So let us know down there in the comments, and more so, to help us understand what you all want to hear about or want us to talk about. Drop some comments with some questions or whatever it is you want us to nitpick and chat about the next go around next week. But I also want to double down on what Ryne said. We're watching on our end, the deep end, the growth of this channel. We're reading through the comments that you're already writing, and we are both very, very grateful for all the support and just the viewership and all of you, because without all of you, I mean, Ryne and I wouldn't be having as much fun and enjoyment in what we're doing. It takes a community. And so I think I speak for the both of us. We are just so incredibly grateful for all of you guys, the viewership. And guys, until next week, We will see you all back here in the deep end.